Hi future nesters, welcome. I'm Rabbit West, aka West Nest Jess, and welcome to the West Nest. I thank you so much for coming. Do me a favor and smash that like button for me, and consider giving me a subscribe if you like the content. I'm not going to be before you long today. I just wanted to have a brief conversation about some things that we should discuss with our partners prior to getting married. And also a bonus caveat at the end that I personally am now a huge proponent of. So let's chew the fat on it. The first thing I think that is so important to discuss prior to getting married to someone is money. Money is super important. We live with money, we pay our bills with money, we eat with money, etc. And it's important to have that discussion. And what I mean by that is I had to have a discussion with my husband because I'm very frugal with certain things. And at the time that we were dating, he was very free with the money. So that was a concern to me just because of how I was brought up, you know. How are the bills going to get paid? How are we going to save? How are we going to allocate for different things that we need? So that's a discussion that we had to have. Now my husband is the primary breadwinner of the home, and how we decided to set everything up is he makes the money, I work as well. I am a career woman, but the bulk of the money is pulled in by him. So the money comes in, we pull the money, and then I pay all of the bills for the house and allocate the savings, and then we have money left over to do what we will. But that was a conversation that we had to have so that we knew how the structure of everything was going to work. And money truly is important. You can't have someone who is spending your mortgage money, you know, on shoes or gambling or whatever their vices are, and you're trying to scrape every penny on this side. Like, that doesn't mesh. Even if your partner is not the best with money, having conversation about, listen, I know you like the XYZ. So every month when we pull our money together, this amount can go towards, you know, that vice of yours or whatever. However you guys come up with a solution, the point of this particular piece of advice is to have the conversation so that you can get to some type of resolution. I think the next thing that's super important to discuss is family. Family is a really big thing to me. My family has had a family reunion with 200 plus people for the past 7 years. We are the type of family that we're together on all the holidays: Christmas, Thanksgiving, 4th of July, Juneteenth. Somebody's cooking out. We're all huddled together, playing board games, having a good time, hitting a little line dance, you know, whatever. That's my family's vibe. My mom, God rest her soul, called me like 3 times a day, and we had whole people conversations. So it was important that my husband understood that family is important to me. I love being around my family. I love you being around my family. How you feel about that? Now, I was extremely lucky because my husband's family honestly operates a lot like mine. They're together for all the holidays. They have a family reunion every year. He talks to his mom every day. And so those things are just as important to him as it is to me. But it's still a conversation because, I'll give you an example. If you are a person who, let's say you talk to your dad every day, at least once a day, but your husband or your wife or your partner doesn't communicate with their parents at all, they're not going to understand the importance it has for you to communicate with your parent on a daily basis, just to make sure that they're okay, that they're feeling well, and that they are checking up on you to make sure that you're well and your mental health is where it needs to be, etc. So even if your partner does not have the same family setup as you, it's still important to talk about it so that they understand and they are not blinded, I should say, when they marry you and they see the involvement that you have with your family. I'll never forget, I broke up with a guy one time because I took him to Christmas, and he sat down and ate, and we all fellowship after we eat. You know, there's wine, there's cakes, desserts, laughter. He went and sat in the car, and I left him in the car for like 3 hours. And when we got back in the car, well, when I got back to the car, after I said bye to my mom and my family, I drove him right back home, and I never saw him again. That was the biggest turnoff to me. If you want to be my lover, you gotta get like, you got to get with my fam. And the fact that he had, and I knew his family structure wasn't, yeah, but the whole purpose was for you not to spend Christmas alone, and you just, honey, it was a whole waste. Anyway, I couldn't jive with it. So family's super important to discuss. Let's see. I think the next thing that's important to discuss is children. Do you want them? Do you not want them? Do you want 10? Do you want 2? What's your thoughts on it? You know, I've got a family member, and she married a man, and they were married like 3 to 5 years. She's like, okay, I think we're in a good place financially, mentally, that we should, you know, start thinking about expanding our family. And he was like, you want a dog? She was like, no, a kid. And he's like, I don't want kids. I mean, she was just like clutching my pearls, because what do you mean you don't want kids? I've always dreamed of this house, this fence, these kids, these, you know, and that was her dream of what a marriage should look like. But they didn't have that conversation beforehand. And she would say to me, you know, it's so selfish of him to not consider me, and so on and so forth. And I'm like, but is it selfish? Because that's always been his thought, and it's always been how he felt. You guys just didn't talk about it. He could say the same thing to you, that you're being selfish. But the Lord saw fit, and they did the work, and they stayed together, and they are childless. But they were happy. He has since passed away, but they stayed together for the long haul, and they worked through the issue. I just think they both could have saved a lot of mental anguish, and a lot of work that had to be put in had they had that conversation ahead of time. I think another thing with children is discipline. It's super, super important. And what I mean by that is, talk about how you plan on raising your child. You know, are you a spanker? Are you a timeouter? Believe it or not, and now that I have a child, I have a 17-month-old, we have a 17-month-old, it's important, because I can't be like, go to timeout and do 10 squats, and then he's over here, you know, with a belt every 5 minutes. It just doesn't mesh. It leaves the kid confused. So that's something that we talked about ahead of time as well. The other thing that I think I can really say has helped my marriage a lot is that we discussed discussing, aka arguing. Believe it or not, I'm a Scorpio, my husband's a Scorpio. It's a whole lot of Scorpioing happening, okay? I go from 0 to 100 real quick. My husband, not so much. He really is more laid back. But when 10 hits, it's 10. And he's only hit 10 with me like once, and it was my fault. But we've had those discussions. The thing about it is, like, my husband likes to talk. If we're having an issue in the moment, he wants to talk about it. The thing about me is my mouth is slick and I go for the jugular. When I'm upset, I don't want to talk about it right that moment because I am literally afraid of what I'm gonna say. Give me a moment. Let me step away from the situation. Let me bring it down a couple notches, and then we can have the conversation. I'm not saying going away and being mad, but give me some time to just think about it. I like to think about my words because words do hurt people. I don't care what that sticks and stones stuff. Words hurt people. And I just want to be mindful of what I say. I want to be able to articulate my thoughts to you. So give me a moment, and then we can come back and we can discuss it and come, to a resolve or agree to disagree or whatever the case may be. So arguing, believe it or not, is something that needs to be discussed. I'll give you a prime example. God rest her soul. But my mom was a screamer. She's gonna go off and you're gonna hear all throughout the house, baby, okay? But my dad, I call him a walk-awayer because he's just gonna walk away and go chill and watch TV or like lay across the bed. He's not paying her no mind. He's not giving her any rebuttal, any feedback. He can't even be seen. And it just took her up, her levels just kept rising. And so she's screaming even harder. And her husband is asleep on the bed. So, I learned that discussing how we're going to argue was something I learned from my parents. I think that religion is super important to discuss too. It's important because some of the greatest wars in the world have been fought over religion. You do not want to be warring with your partner because you feel like church every Sunday and Bible study on Tuesday is important and they just do not care. And it's okay to be different, but discuss those differences and how you're going to handle it in a relationship prior to, taking a step like marriage, because it can cause a rift. I'm very blessed that my husband and I see eye to eye on religion, especially now that we have our son, because that's also a discussion that we had when we had the discussion around children is how is religion going to play in with our child? I have religious and moral values. And first of all, let me just say,
you don't have to be a Christian or a Muslim or whatever. Pick one and insert to have moral values.
Okay? What I am saying is you do not want to be trying to drag your child to go be baptized on Sunday and your spouse is trying to, go to the synagogue. You have to come to an agreement, especially when children are involved. If me and my husband had separate religions and he went this way and I went that way, maybe he went to church on Saturday and I went on Sunday, we could do that. But what happens to our child now that our child is here? So that's very important. Or maybe you're not religious at all. You weren't brought up in any type of religion. You don't see the importance in religion. You just think being a good person is what needs to be done. Then so be it. But what happens if you fall in love with someone who is super religious? Is that going to bother you? Is that going to be a problem? So that's why the conversation needs to be had. At least I think that's my advice to you. So we went over arguing, money, children, religion. Sex and intimacy is definitely something that you should discuss. And you should discuss this often, because I know for a fact, and I'll give a video about marriage after a child sometime later, but intimacy and sex change a lot after our child. talk about the intimacy that you like. Talk about your love languages. I hate that phrase, but unfortunately, it is the coin phrase for what I'm trying to say. So, you know, how do you express your love? Honestly, this is the one thing out of all of these things on this list that me and my husband did not talk about, and we should have, because my husband is very touchy-feely. He's a cuddler. That's his love language. I am not. I've never been. I honestly don't like people touching me. I don't like massages. I don't like any of that stuff. So it was new to me to learn to embrace his love language. I think if that was a conversation we had prior to getting married, I would have been maybe a little more mentally ready for it. And you've got to think, I'll give you an example. If you're going to bed and your love language is cuddling and intimacy and just skin on skin, and your wife gets in the bed and cocoons herself in the comforter, like on the very edge of the bed, how does that make you feel? Like, I personally would feel rejected, I guess. So those were adjustments that I had to make in my marriage. And just talk about it. Are you wanting sex 10 times a day? If you are going to want sex 10 times a day, you need to let your partner know. Because sex drives are different for different people at different stages in life, etc. So just have that conversation. And as you feel yourself changing throughout the relationship, right? Continue to have those conversations on any of these topics. If you see something changing, continue to have those conversations. This brings me to my bonus. I told you I'd give you a bonus at the end, right? So, me and my husband did not live together prior to getting married. The family I was raised in, I just felt like my grandma would roll over in her grave. And my mama would just lose her mind. You know, you don't live with a man before you marry them. If I could go back, I would change it.
I would change it.
I think that if you get engaged, maybe you're 6 to 8 months out before the wedding, we should have definitely moved in together. I'm an only child, he's an only child. I've been I won't say on my own. I've been out of my parents' house and living, you know, in my own space since I went off to college at 18. He, the exact same. So we had ways about us and a certain way we like to do things. And I don't think either of us was really prepared for cohabitation and having to deal with each other's shit. Because it was a lot for me. Like, I'll never forget, I called my mom and I'm like crying. I'm like, I can't do this. It's too much. I walked into the bathroom and he had left the cap off the toothpaste. I lost it. Lord, take me now. I lost it. And I'm just like, what?
What?
Like, I just don't understand why, Lord? Why? Just why? I wash dishes like as I cook and he lets them pile up until he's finished. Drove me crazy. Wasn't ready for it. And these are little trivial things, right? But when you are used to living your life a certain way, having things the way that you like them, like, baby, what are you doing? Get it together. Now we're arguing. No, the back and forth is too much. It's too much. it was a huge adjustment. And it was a lot of work. And it was work that we could have put in beforehand had we lived together. So those are my bits of advice. And if, you know, living together, as old folks call it, shacking up, is not something that you believe in, then don't do it. But spend some long weekends together or something, honey, because but alas, I thank you for chewing the fat with me on this. Maybe you got something out of this video. Was it entertaining? Either way, smash the like button for me. Subscribe for more West Nest content. I am Rabbit West, aka West Nest Jess, and I am signing off. Good night.